Oh, so interesting talking to him. On to Major League Soccer right now, and New York Red Bulls in Atlanta, but without their regular goalkeeper. After 183 consecutive regular season matches and MLS record, Luis Robles out with a knee injury. That streak comes to an end. I'll get to that in just a bit. But the Red Bulls, they do press on, beating Atlanta FC 3-1. Meanwhile, Kamar Lawrence was taken off the field in a stretcher. No update on his injury from the team as of right now, but nonetheless, an impressive result on the road. And with that final, the longest Ironman streak in MLS history comes to an end, but what a feat it was. And the man who endured every minute of it, blasting the original streak, the Ironman himself, Luis Robles. Now, Luis, normally I'm excited to have a guest in studio, but under these circumstances, it's a bit bittersweet. What were your emotions this week as you guys came to the decision that you had to miss this game due to injury?
It's almost bizarre because when the injury occurred on Saturday, we didn't think much about it. On Tuesday, when I was driving to training, our physio calls and he said, hey, we watched the video of the collision and we really think you should get an MRI. And I thought it was fairly innocuous. I was feeling a little sore, a little stiffness, but nothing extreme. And yet when we went and took the MRI, the picture showed something drastically different. And that was almost the most difficult part about it, is because physically I felt great. And yet when the doctors looked at the pictures, when they looked at my knee, there just was so much that was surprising, and yet there was a lot of risk involved in my next steps. And so throughout the week, it was it was a very investigative process. We spoke to a lot of doctors, we had a lot of opinions, a lot of people checked out my knee, they checked out the MRIs, and yet through all of it, I can't help but, as a human being, think, what does this mean long term?
What's sort of the timetable right now?
So I am week to week. I think realistically it is going to be a few weeks, because we don't necessarily want to rush it yet, because the stability of the knee and the structure of the knee is fine. We just have to see how it goes.
Right. 183 consecutive games. You broke Kevin Hartman's streak of 112 straight complete games, that all-time record. He was the previous Ironman before you, and like I said, you just blasted that record from there. When you look back, and really your first MLS or real Red Bull start when the streak began was September 29, 2012. Yeah. Could you ever imagine coming to work every day and playing every day like you did for these regular season games?
No. Absolutely not. My mentality through all of it is come to work and give it my best. And sometimes my best was great and sometimes it wasn't that great. Yet, at least I can control my effort. And then, of course, the type of person I want to be, the type of teammate that I want to be, the way I react to situations. These, to me, were more important than anything else. And yet, for it to culminate in this incredible run, this streak is great. And one of the most special things about it for me is not only that I got to represent such a great organization in the New York Red Bulls, that my family got to participate in this, but for my parents. My parents were at that very first game. And I can't even remember if my wife was at the first game, because
your parents live in Arizona.
They live in Arizona, and yet my wife was on bed rest. So
from a pregnancy.
I'm pretty sure she was at the game, but
don't even remember.
With great certainty, I can say that my parents were there.
Yeah.
And so then you fast forward to the 113th game, which is when I broke the streak, and it was in Colorado, interestingly enough. And because it's within driving distance of Arizona, my parents were there as well. And now, last weekend, when we played in Colorado, when the streak officially ended, my parents were there as well. And so, growing up, we weren't able to watch a lot of TV, and yet there was one movie that my dad had, because he was such a huge Yankees fan.
No way.
And it was Pride of the Yankees. And it was about Lou Gehrig, the original Iron Man, the guy who had the streak of 2,130 games.
Wow.
And now we play a different sport, and yet somehow I felt like that streak honored my dad and is part of his legacy.
Next week at the game on Saturday at Red Bull Arena, they will honor you, they will recognize the streak, and then they're going to put a permanent sign. They've been changing the banner. You didn't know this?
No.
Oh, well, this is official. No. This is from the Red Bulls. They're going to recognize you, and they're going to make that, they're calling it permanent branding of your streak. What does that mean to you, Luis?
Yeah, It's been an emotional week. And, sorry.
That's okay. This is big.
Allergies. It's like it's spring.
I know.
Like
It's
all
the pollen. Yeah.
All the allergies
the
are
hay
hitting.
Fever.
Absolutely. When my wife and I showed up in 2012, we didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And yet we had this great opportunity to play for an organization such as the New York Red Bulls.
Because you almost retired. I just want to let some of our Red Bulls fans know that. You
Absolutely. And yet there's my wife who just says, no, I think you're really going to regret this. You should continue. Even though it's not smooth, just try, just try. And here I am picking up a phone, calling Major League Soccer and trying to explain my situation. And I go through the allocation. I get allocated to the New York Red Bulls, and we show up. My wife's 7 months pregnant, and yet the only thing I'm thinking of is not necessarily, oh man, I want to get on the field and play with Rafa Marquez and Thierry Henry and for such a cool organization. It's we're insured. And
so
in a couple of months, in a couple of months, when my wife gives birth to our first child, I'm not going to have to pay $20,000 for this. And then for it to work out the way that it did, to be a part of this organization as we continue to try to be the best organization and win MLS Cup and win more silverware, for them to honor me for doing something that's really nothing more than me showing up every day to work and doing my job is very special, and it speaks to this organization and what they're trying to accomplish.
Luis, thank you so much for coming in today. I know your team's in Atlanta, just finishing up that game, but we appreciate you sharing such an emotional part of your career here on Sports Extra. So thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back.